Hi everyone, welcome to our YouTube channel CA Sansar. I am CA Yukti Luthra and today we are going to discuss IFRS 16. I would like to thank Mr. C. Vivek Khurana for giving this wonderful opportunity to present this deliberation. So let's start with our topic. IFRS 16. So as all of us know, IFRS 16 relates to leases and in India we have equivalent standard that is Ind AS 116. So when we look at the balance sheets of company which prepared on 31st March 2020 financial year, so all the companies on which Ind AS were applicable, they have applied this new guidance of leases. Similarly in IFRS, this is applicable from 1st January 2019. So let's move forward and try to understand some of the aspects of this standard. So we will broadly classify our learning into four parts. That is my scoping, recognition, classification, initial and subsequent measurement. So when we look at the scoping, it is applicable to all my leasing arrangements that convey right to use asset with certain limited exceptions. So when we look at these exceptions, what is the reason that these are scoped out from my standard? Because we have particular guidance under their respective standards. For example, we have specific guidance for leases of minerals, oils, and natural gas under IFRS 6. We have particular guidance for biological assets leases that is under IS 1. And for service concession arrangements, we have IFRIC 12 guidance and so on. So these are the five exceptions given under the standard. Reason being, we have separate guidance for them. Okay. So now look at the definition of lease. So under IFRS 16, when we look at the definition, it says a contract is or contains a lease if the contract conveys the right to control the use of identified asset for a period of time in exchange for consideration. So let's try to break it down into parts and try to understand it. So first of all, lease should have identified asset, and second, customer has the right to control the use. So when we look at identified asset, we should assess whether it is explicitly or implicitly stated in my arrangement. So what does it mean? It means, for example, I enter into a vehicle lease. So I entered into an arrangement with supplier wherein I have specified, okay, this is the brand of car I want, this is the size of car, this is the vehicle number. So I have mentioned all my specifications, all my requirements in that arrangements, and this is how I have explicitly stated it in my contract. Or it can be implicitly stated as well. For example, the car is not manufactured yet, but I have already entered into arrangement with my supplier. Okay, I want this kind of car, this kind of brand, this much mileage should be there, this color should be this. So this is how I have implicitly stated, although car is not manufactured yet, but I have entered into my arrangement and I have mentioned all my requirements, so I have already identified my asset. Second, suppliers should not have any substantive rights to substitute. So, what does it mean? It means supplier is not able to replace my asset throughout the period of lease. And how we know it? We know it if my arrangement specify that supplier has right that he can replace my asset anytime, and we know that it is very beneficial for supplier to do so. When he do his cost benefit analysis, it is in a beneficial position, so obviously he will do that. So in that way I will assess ki, okay, this is not my identified as asset, because at the start it, although asset is identified, but during my lease term it can be replaced anytime by supplier, so I will not call it my identified asset and it will be scoped out from my leases. Next, customer has the right to control the use. Okay, so what does it mean? It means customer has right to obtain all the economic benefit. He has right to obtain substantially all the economic benefits. So how will he derive these economic benefits? Either by holding the asset, or by using the asset, or by subleasing the asset. So whatever the benefits are coming from that identified asset, customer is able to obtain substantially, majorly all the economic benefits from the asset. Okay, and next, customer has the right to direct the use. So standard had specified certain decision making rights on the basis of which we assess who has these rights. For example, how the asset will be used, how much output will be produced, when the asset will be used, how much quantity will be produced from the asset, and so on. So these decision making rights lies in whose hands? If it is in the hands of supplier, that means supplier is controlling the asset, not customer. So I will not call it lease. And second, if it is in the hands of customer only, then okay, this is my lease arrangement. So these all conditions have to be met in order to conclude this is a leasing arrangement. Otherwise it will be scoped out from my IFRS 16 standard. Okay, so now look at recognition and measurement part. So as we know, we have studied in our CS studies, there were operating leases, there were finance leases, and we had different treatment for both of them. But now under IFRS 16, for lessees only, please note, for lessees only, we have single lease accounting model. That means there is no requirement to classify it into operating lease or finance lease. It doesn't matter at all. You have to recognize both the lease arrangements in the same manner. And this is for lessees only, please note. So, what is the impact of this standard? That all the major leases will now appear on balance sheet. So, we will look at certain exemptions for some minor leases, but all the major leases are on balance sheet now. So, how will I recognize it? In my balance sheet, I have right of use asset, and liability side, I have obligation to make the lease payments. And on profit and loss, what will be the impact? I have my lease expenses, depreciation, and interest component. So, I will segregate into that part. Okay. So what I talked about in earlier slide, like some of the minor leases are not on balance sheet. Let's talk about that now. So these are the optional exemptions given under the standard. So these two exemptions are what? First, if the asset is of low value asset. Now what does it mean? It means that although the limit is not specified in the standard, but there is an amount given in basis of conclusion. That is, if any lease is of less than $5,000, that is my low value asset. Okay, so I don't need to recognize it on balance sheet, and I can straight line my expense over the lease term or other systematic basis, and we have to apply it on lease by lease basis. Okay, for example, we have seen here that there is this asset is of low value, 5,000 or less, then I can straight line my expense for this particular item. Okay, so now look at this short term lease exemption. Short term lease is that lease which has a lease term of 12 months or less. So, for all my arrangements which has a lease duration of less than 12 months, I don't need to recognize my ROU assets or lease liabilities on the balance sheet, and I will expense it off over the lease term. This is applied by class of underlying asset. So what does it mean? Like I can't say like I will apply this short-term lease exemption for certain items of furniture and not other items of furniture. If I am applying it on a furniture, I have to apply it in all class of furniture. Okay. Now look at the classification part. So as we have already discussed earlier that there is no requirement to distinguish between finance lease and operating lease. So the initial recognition, subsequent accounting treatment, it will not distinguish whatever kind of arrangement it is for a lessee only. So what is my classification? I don't need to classify it basically. So there is a single accounting model for lessee for all the leases. Okay, so this is quite simple. Now let's try to understand our initial measurement and subsequent measurement. So first of all, let me look at this example and frame our journal entries, and then we will see how these all are recognized. So the fact is that there is a company ABC that entered into a 3-year lease for a shopping center. Payments are given 10,000 in year 1, 12,000 in year 2, and 14,000 in year 3. There are no purchase option, then there are loan lease incentives. So this we will discuss later. We have certain implications if these were there in this facts. Okay. So initial measurement is already given to us, $33,000. This is calculated using discount rate. So what is the requirement under standard? Requirement is that we have to use implicit rate in the lease. So this is basically my IRR only. So in this case, implicit rate is not available. So ABC, this company has used IBR. Present value of lease payments at the end of year 1 is given as $24,398. So this is our facts. Now, how I will recognize it? First of all, we don't see whether it's operating lease or finance lease. The treatment will be same. So IFRS has a single lease classification for lessees. So how I will initially recognize? Right of use asset debit, that is my $33,000, and lease liability credit. Okay, so this is my day 1 entry. Now, at the end of year 1, how I will account for this? Now we have two items in my balance sheet, right of use asset and lease liability. So what I will do with this right of use asset? I will amortize it over the lease term. That is my 3 years. So at the end of year 1, I will amortize it like my other assets. Amortization expense debit, this will go to P&L, and right of use asset credit. So my asset will get depreciated every year. Now we have lease liability on the liability side. What we will do with that? We will accrete our interest on the lease liability on the same discount rate which we used for calculating initial measurement, that is my 4.235. So this is basically the concept of unwinding of discount, which we have discussed in our SFM as well, which we have read in our SFM classes, right? So we will debit my interest expense. This is my finance cost. This will go to P&L and credit my lease liability. So my liability will keep on increasing by accretion of interest. And next thing, what I will do with this lease liability, I will reduce it with the payments I have made. So in my arrangement, what are the payments? At the end of year one, we are paying $10,000. So lease liability debit, cash credit. Okay. So this is how these entries will move in my books of accounts every year as per this framework of IFRS 16. Okay, so let's look at the theoretical part of it now. Initial measurement. Initially measured ROU asset and lease liability at present value of lease payments. So initially we have measured it at $33,000. This was what? This was the present value of lease payments. So in our case, it was same. Okay, right of use asset and lease liability is the same amount. But had there had been some initial direct costs that were incurred by lessee, or had there been any prepayments made to lessor, or if any lease incentives are received from the lessor, we will reduce that. And if I have some obligations in my contract, I have to restore the asset to same condition. I will include that expense as well in my ROU asset. Okay. So subsequent measurement of lease liability. Accrete the lease liability based on interest method using discount rate determined at lease commencement. So we will freeze our discount rate. This will be the discount rate throughout my lease unless certain facts are changed or reassessment is made. So this will be the same, right? And what we did next thing, reduce lease liability by payments made. So this is quite simple now because we have already seen this through our journal entries. So this is our treatment for subsequent measurement and initial measurement. And ROU asset, what we did, we depreciated based on IAS 16. An alternative measure of ROU asset under IAS 16 and IAS 40. What does it mean? Like we have fair value model under IAS 16 and IAS 40 for subsequent measurement. So we can apply that model as well. So we need to know my right of asset relate to which of the following. Is it my PP&E or is it my investment property? Accordingly, I will apply the guidance of specific standards. Right? Okay, so now we will look at what all is included in my lease payments. So initially we measured our lease liability at present value of outstanding lease payments. So what all I need to include in my lease payments? Fixed payments, including in substance fixed payments. So fixed payment we have seen in our case $10,000, $12,000, and $14,000, I guess, for the third year. Right, correct. So we have to include those fixed payment, and if there are in substance fixed payments, we have to include that as well. In substance means like our IFRS goes on the framework of substance over form. For example, I have entered into arrangement. I have mentioned some certain element of variability in my payments. For example, I have mentioned I will pay $10,000 if the machine is operating effectively. So this is a very obvious condition. Obviously, machine will operate effectively. So this is just framed in a manipulative way. Otherwise, it is fixed payment only. So we will look at substance of the transaction rather than the form, right? So in substance, fixed payments are also included. If any incentives are received from the lessor, that will be reduced. Next, variable lease payments are included that are dependent on index or rate. So please note, only those variable payments are included that are dependent on index or rate. So if my payments are dependent on any index, let's say CPI, so I have to estimate the future projections of my CPI and I have to include those payments as well under my lease payments. Payments for terminating the lease. So if the parties has right to terminate the lease and it is reasonably certain, it is prima facie evident that okay, this right will certainly be exercised. So I will include those penalties as well if there are any, right? And if exercise price of purchase option, if there is any purchase option, I have to include the exercise price of that option as well. This is the same case if it is reasonably certain to exercised. Okay. And if any residual value guarantees are there. So these all items are included in my measurement of lease liability. So when we look at our ROU, what all is measured? We have calculated our lease liability. We will make certain adjustments for all these things we have discussed earlier as well. Like if any initial direct costs are incurred by the lessee, that it will be added. Okay. If there is any obligation for lessee, I have to restore this asset, I have to dismantle it. For example, in the case of oil rigs, there are huge costs incurred. This is related to basically my concept of ARO. So I have to include that liability as well in my ROU asset. If any prepaid lease payments are there, I will include that as well. And if any lease incentives are received from the lessor, I will reduce that. Okay, so this is basically my initial and subsequent measurement for my lease liabilities and ROU assets. So this is a brief overview of our IFRS 16. There are much more to learn about it in the standard, like what are the lease component, what are the non-lease component, what are the other variable payments, and what are the impact of our options, how the lease term is assessed, and so on. So there's a much to learn about this on the standard on practical aspects as well. It is very important standard and theoretically as well. Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone.